Good evening. Today on Solitary No More VA, I will be interviewing returning citizen brother Willie Brown X about the conditions while incarcerated in the Virginia Department of Corrections. My name is Natasha White. I'm the coordinator for the Virginia Coalition on Solitary Confinement.
Brother Willy X, um, thank you for the opportunity. Solitary confinement to end it in Virginia. Just recently came home 3 years ago. Did 35 years and 11 months. Was also in solitary confinement for about 18 months.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Can you tell us how the process was there? Because apparently the Department of Virginia, the Corrections in Virginia claims that they do not have solitary confinement. They now call it restorative housing. They have these step down programs, but in all actuality, it's a form of verbal gymnastics for isolation. So I want to do a comparison to what it was then to what they're claiming it is now, because apparently they changed it as of 2019. And you were already home, or at least on your way home, because you've been home 3 years.
right. Yes, ma'am. The comparison when I first got in, when I first was initially segregated or isolated from the general population, the things or our personal properties that we was able to have was commissary in the cell, your TV, your Walkman, books, and your legal work. A lot of that has been restricted over the years. They took the TVs. You can still have what is called a JP4 player. You can have a JP4 player right now. You was able to have your fan. You can no longer have a fan. We was able to have typewriters. When they was allowing typewriters to be in the system, we was able to carry our typewriters with us in isolation. That's no more. So the fans, the typewriter, which was a major help because it allowed individuals to read and to type and to work on their legal work, to write letters, to do book reports, to work on business plans if they wanted to do that.
Something to stimulate your mind.
Yes, and so that was a major help. Also for those who was into litigation, the typewriter was a major instrument that we would use, and so they didn't want us to have that type of tool that allow us to stretch our minds.
Right.
Because we stayed on the typewriter. I had my own personal typewriter and everything. If I had an issue with the Department of Correctional officer that violated something, then I go straight to the typewriter and get my informal complaints and type everything up neatly. And then, of course, I wanted to learn how to type.
Yeah.
And so, but it allowed us to apply our knowledge almost immediately. Because once you read and you learn and you understand what you read and learn, everybody was going to the typewriter.
Exactly.
So,
and they don't want that.
No, they didn't want that. The typewriter had a certain type of effect on us, like our phones currently have an effect on us, allowing you to constantly engage and try to master as many of the features as you possibly can so you can get the best result out of your tool.
Yeah, and the last thing they want is for you to to have progress in any form of skill that doesn't benefit them. And of course, typing up papers and complaints does not benefit the Department of Corrections. Let me ask you this. What did they offer you? Any kind of rehabilitative services, things that address the underlying issue of why you went to solitary confinement?
No, ma'am, not at that time. If you caught an institutional fraction or you caught an institutional infraction, you would they would charge you and they would lock you up. I'm on the interview, babe. Let me call you back, sweetheart. Yes, ma'am. All right. So they would lock you up and you can ask request for books. Of course, they will bring some of your property back there at that time. And so, you know, we had those items that acted as a amount of distraction from the reality that you're confined.
Yeah.
In solitary confinement.
Can I ask you how solitary confinement affected you personally?
To some extent, it affected me because of my limited stay. 18 months for me wasn't really too harsh, or I didn't at that time understand the effect that it would have on me psychologically, because I was constantly reading, I was in meditation, I was using that opportunity to better myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that allowed it to play a positive effect, but I knew that it had an effect on me, because when you're taken from the population, your ability to socialize as a social human being becomes restricted. And when you are restricted like that, and I have witnessed individuals incarcerated, commit suicide.
Right.
And so
it's too much. It becomes too much.
Right.
Natural, everyday, everyday incidents, everyday frustrations become very hard to deal with.
Right.
Especially once you are released. Say, the sad reality of the situation is, you don't see what it's done to you until you're not there anymore.
Exactly. And that's true. The effect when you reintegrate, almost similar to when we come in home. You just going back to the general population, you can immediately sense that there's a different shift emotionally and psychologically. You're glad to be out,
of course,
but now you have to readjust again. I think I might have went to solitary confinement on 3 different occasions. And so in each occasion, having to have that first experience allowed me to deal with the experience of being being solitary confined better, because I know what to expect. I know how to, how to utilize that period of time, however long they're going to keep me in there, what I needed to do to keep my mind stimulated in a positive way. Go ahead and take the time to work on something that I may wanted to work on and grow at that point in time. It's just like the child in the womb. It goes through a period of gestation, but it's growing because you're constantly feeding
it, right?
Feeding the mind. So I think I wasn't on like Supermax. Supermax is a totally different type of solitary confinement where you're confined literally to your cell 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Supermax, these other type of maximum security, super maximum security, and you don't have no contact with nobody.
Yeah.
And it can drive people
crazy.
Insane.
Yeah, drive you
crazy.
Insane.
And so you need something to help you to deal with that type of situation, that dehumanizing situation, so that you really won't lose yourself. Not having any type of human contact will cause you to think suicidal.
Yeah.
Will cause you to develop anxiety, depression. And so when you're dealing with these combinations of emotions and stuff, and you don't have a comprehensive knowledge on how to properly cope with that, then it can really become problematic for the person themselves.
Yeah.
Unless
absolutely.
their mind can grab hold to something to keep them afloat.
Absolutely.
Yes,
so one of my major concerns is, I speak to a lot of people, and I myself have done time. Do you think that the fact that you did so much time, that you were able to cope with the solitary confinement easier because 18 months to you is like, or no? Is it backwards? Because I've always, since I've met you, it amazes me that you are so poised and calm, and because you went to prison at a very young age.
14.
14 years old. For somebody to be locked up at 14 and do 35 years, you're spent more of your life in than out.
Yes,
I know from being incarcerated myself, I know that men's prison is different from women's prison.
Absolutely.
It's more violent, it's more dangerous, it's more hard. There's no softness there.
That's right.
And a growing boy needs A grown man needs softness in his life. You
Right.
understand? So to add solitary confinement to that, not only your stints, but the relationships and the brothers that you've developed relationships with and see what they go through inside. How do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about what we're doing now to try to stop it? Like, do you believe in it? Yeah, like, how do you feel about your comrades that you left behind that are now dealing with their solitary issues? And how is that different from, I asked you 10 questions at once. I'm sorry.
That's okay. The difference from when I initially came in '83, they just throwed you into the system. Still a juvenile at the time, even though they certified me as an adult. I was placed among men,
Grown men,
violent men with many different violent cases that I didn't necessarily knew of. But the good thing that I recognized, or that was helpful for me to survive that hostile environment, is that there was people there that was genuinely concerned about helping a young brother that's coming into the system.
Absolutely.
So that played a major role in me being able to survive. Of course, and man, these are the codes of prison. So you follow these, then you'll be all right. And it was pretty good code because it's all about just respecting people, minding your business. Do you?
Yeah.
Find a program. They was big on pushing you to become educated. We don't want you to remain ignorant while you're here. You need to go to school. They forced me to go to school because I was illiterate at the time.
And you're talking about the fellow prisoners, not not corrections.
Yeah, and that's where it's going to come from. Of course, the corrections have certain programs, but the programs, to me, are not taught in a way where the incarcerated brothers and sisters can really embrace it. And so I see that as another form, because it's like they don't know how to reach us. And so like I used to ask officers, I said, man, what type of advice can you provide for me to help correct myself? He said, man, just keep on doing what you're doing. So it was no real staff member that was genuinely concerned about our rehabilitation, our growth and development. They let us to do what we do, however we was doing it, because they was overwhelmed, not only by the work that they had to do, just running the prison, but even by their own administration.
Absolutely.
For those who wanted to treat us humane, because you can still be in the general population and be abused psychologically, emotionally, and disrespected, and you know what I'm saying, and treated other than a man. And so you have to deal with that, and you have to subordinate your emotion just to survive the onslaught of somebody attacking you every day, or trying to make you feel like you nothing, you have no power, and that we don't care what you do. We don't care if you write a charge. We don't care if you call your family. We do what we want to do. And so when you confronted with that, then you come to the realization that this psychological warfare, emotional warfare. Now you either gonna just go ahead and spaz out on the officer, and then go back to the hole, and then they're gonna jump on you. They're gonna beat you down, several of them, and they're gonna possibly hurt you, or you can possibly lose your life.
Yeah.
And then that'll be more traumatizing, because I know guys that been through it. They done been traumatized.
Right.
And because the officers beat like the light up out of them, the confidence up out of them.
Yeah. Killed their soul. They killed their soul, their spirit, broken spirit.
Right. And so I witnessed a lot of this. So when I came to the realization, I said, no, hold up, my goal is to make it home. This is a war, you know what I'm saying? This is a warfare. And so let me make sure that I develop my mind and my emotions to the point where I can't allow a lot of negativity to have that type of effect on me. And so, I kind of blocked a lot of things out, but still was able to be an activist, to advocate for brothers that was being misused while incarcerated.
Right.
So I was wanting to go back and study and learn some things. And no, brother, this is how you do this. If you want to stop them from doing this, then this is the method that I use.
Right.
And so I would go through my grievances, formal complaints, but I always written on the outside to organization, to
Right.
legislators, so forth and so on, to make them aware, and then I would get my process of filing internally within the institution. So by the time they receive it, see something is already coming down, and
Right.
when it hit, it's just like if you're trying to throw my paper away, which often happen, they'll throw your informal complaint away, they'll throw your emergency grievance form
Right.
away, and then, you know what I'm saying, and it's like it can make you feel almost hopeless and powerless.
Yeah, and that's the point.
Yeah,
And so with the correction part of corrections,
right.
it doesn't happen. There is no their goal. It's just like slavery is to break the buck.
Yes, ma'am.
You
Absolutely.
know, that is the reality of the country we live in.
Yeah.
I am so very appreciative of people like yourself, people like myself, who consistently relive our own traumas to make this world a better place. You know,
Yes.
incarceration is nothing new. How they treat our black and brown brothers and sisters.
True.
It is definitely a form of slavery, and everybody knows it now. The
Right.
difference is we now, as returning citizens, have the platform to make change.
Yeah, we must make change.
I noticed when you came, one of your brothers called that is still inside of the wall, and that's important.
Yes, ma'am.
It's an important connection to keep, not only for him but for yourself.
Right.
Because I don't know what I would do if I didn't give back.
Right.
This is how I give back, and even though at sometimes it affects me in a way where I have to shut down the next day. After, like yesterday, I had an event with Interfaith Action for Human Rights where I told my life story, and I went to sleep right afterwards, and it was at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. But if we didn't do this, what else would we do? From what your brother, now that I speak on your brother that called, from what he said to you about how they are running restorative housing, is that any different than when you left?
Not really, not too much. And he mentioned a particular officer, which I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I've been getting reports about him.
Yeah, and so, you know, and it's just a gung ho type of attitude that, man, you don't run that, we run this, we do what we want to do. And when you're faced with somebody like that, and just imagine some of our young brothers and sisters that's incarcerated, particularly our brothers in particular, you know, we're working on the development of our manhood.
You're right.
We're trying to find that. We're trying to find our own self-authority and our humanity. And when you're constantly either witnesses directly or indirectly, it still has a psychological effect on
Absolutely.
you. And it makes you think, so hold up, let me pull back, because you have to re-strategize. Because you can't act impulsively or emotionally to deal with a person that's in authority. Because if you do, and then you find yourself having to find paperwork, or somebody call your family, notify them this is what they did, so forth and so on, it's always a cover-up.
Right.
For not to allow that type of behavior to get out. And on one particular case that I recall regarding a warden at Sussex 1. They had a Caucasian, I can't recall his name right now. If it come out, I'll speak on it. But he came there with, you know, the attitude like, you know, I do what I want to do, y'all don't tell me what to do, so forth and so on. So an individual approached him about a particular issue, and, you know, he spoke disrespectful towards him. So what the guy did, he managed to get inside the institution a small recorder. And pulled up on him again, and had him to draw him into that same type of attitude and behavior on how he said, man, I do what I want to do. Y'all don't run nothing. And then he was able to and caught him, because that's the only way you can prove the fact that
if they hear it is from the horse's mouth.
And this is a warden now.
Yeah.
And officers was leaving the institution about how he was treating them.
Right. So imagine how he was treating you.
So pretty much we was dealing with one who had racist ideas towards black people, had a very demeaning view of us, and he was going to treat us accordingly according to his belief.
view.
And they got rid of him because The lawyer called, carried it downtown to Gene Johnson, played the tape, said, we got more, what you gonna do? And they got rid of them. And so they are very mindful. Some of them still continue to do it, but like this particular officer, brother, just was informing us about, of course, we know that the program, this restorative thing that they say they got going, is not going on. They may give them some books to work on. They may have increased or allowed them to come out and have a little bit more exercise outside, but it's not really structured the way that it needs to be structured.
Yeah,
but you can have group discussions, where they can actually come out the cell and they can have the council there and say, round table discussion. Come on, guys, let's get into our book like they do in the general population.
Okay.
So if you're going to have a restorative type of segregation effect or step down program that you have to complete before you can be released from solitary confinement or segregation or isolation, then they need to come out as a group, because you're still working by yourself, which can be done as well, but this is supposed to be a collective thing.
It is.
Right.
It is. It is. That's why when I asked you to ask him, like, so when going from a cell to a cage is not it's still confinement. Like, so there's no human interaction. On a meeting with the Virginia Department of Corrections today, they spoke about how much interaction they quote unquote have. Oh, the nurse makes rounds 3 times a day. Oh, the officer makes rounds every 30 minutes. This is what they consider, came out of the Virginia Department of Corrections' mouth today. This is what they consider into human interaction. That's not you peeking in my door, you okay? Yeah, that is not interaction. Right. And keeping it moving, that is not interaction. So, you know, we're fighting really, really, really hard. Last year, you know, the bill smacked down because of the quote-unquote cost. I think they put a $30 million ticket on what it would cost to end solitary confinement. This year, we see them trying to work with us. However, the reality is, a law is a law, and once we get the law changed, you just have to abide by it. We need the ombudsman bill, of course, so that they have overseers that are not hired by the Department of Corrections to just say whatever DOC says they're saying. You know, and without people like you, the loved ones of people that are still incarcerated showing up, nobody's gonna know the truth. And I appreciate you coming today. You know, this will go on our YouTube channel and all of our other platforms. I am planning a tour. After the election day, the tour will go, because we need to see how this election goes.
Yes, ma'am.
And those engagements I will invite you to. And if you know other people like yourself that you've done time with, or you know, in your brotherhood, please bring them along.
Will do. I want to speak on the ombudsman.
Go ahead.
That process, when you file an informal complaints, emergency grievance form, that's where it goes to. Of course, the emergency grievance form, they got to respond within 8 hours, but with the informal complaint, 15 days.
Okay.
And then you have to go, you got to exhaust that whole process. And as trying to exhaust the whole process, we noticed that we ran into roadblocks dealing with the ombudsman. They're supposed to be there to help make sure that the process, that your rights is not violated according to the policy, rules, and regulations. And oftentimes, we had a difficult time dealing with them avoiding, you know what I'm saying, the right response, because we knew the policy and we knew what type of response. Even if we recited the policy, we still would get an evasive response. And, you know, that even frustrated it much more, because, you know, a lot of them was former officers or either counsels.
That's why. They already have a discrepancy, or what do you call it? They already feel a certain way about people that are incarcerated.
And then if you file an informal complaint against one of their former co-workers, as an officer,
retaliation.
even though you're still a person that deals with the informal complaint on the complaint situation, and that person can say, well, look, you got this guy, he writing on you, and so, you know, you got this type of cronyism going on. And so, you know, you can't make no progress. The guy know that you done filed on him. And of course, I'll let him say, man, you know, I got the file on you, man. You know what I'm saying? If you don't apologize to me, because I would try to resolve it that way. I said, man, if you apologize, then I'll leave it alone. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, I'm a file. And when I file, I might write a 10 or 12 page. That's besides the informal complaint. So that's what I do. I do a letter of complaint that allows me to really express and break the whole process down and send it to, at that time, Congressman Bobby Scott. And one of the guys had informed me, one of the counsel, he said, man, he said, I read that book you wrote. I said, what are you talking about? He said, about on it. I said, yeah, man, I had to do that because this person was violating me unnecessarily for whatever reason. I said, I don't disrespect the staff. So, I'm moved through, I'm peaceful, I'm respectful to authority, and then this person feels that I can do what I want to do. I'm like, I can't do no more than what y'all allow me to do.
Exactly.
And I'm confined. And so for you to treat me that way, knowing that I have a good rapport with the staffing, I don't give y'all no problem. So, that's when I had to write up on. You know what I'm saying? Because I saw what they was trying to do. In terms of get me out the population, get me locked up, or I get them, because sometimes you will get information that this person, what you do to the person? I said, well, I ain't do nothing. That person really don't like you. I said, well, I ain't did nothing to that person. So here come abuse. And so here come the lies. And so here you trying to undermine my opportunity and my journey to make it back to my family. And so I can't allow you to do that to me. And so, these are things, because if you don't have the knowledge, if you don't know how to read and write, then you'll feel totally powerless. So now a younger generation that's in there that don't like to write, don't like to use the policy, don't like to use the informal complaint because they have this misunderstanding. It's like telling. I said, no, man, it's protecting your humanity and your rights.
Yes, absolutely.
I said, there are laws and policy that governs them.
Excuse me.
Governs them just like it governs you. So all of us is governed by some policy, some rules, some regulation, because it's a certain way that they're supposed to treat you.
Right.
And I said, brother, if they violate that, then, you have a recourse, to protect yourself. You got to get you some water. Protect yourself against that type of psychological abuse, because whether you know it or not, and
it's lifelong effective.
Yeah, it's lifelong effective.
Excuse me. I don't know why I keep coughing, but hopefully this ombudsman situation changes. I'm not too familiar with it. Being new to Virginia, I came straight into solitary, so I'm learning, and I hope that we have enough common sense to know that you cannot put somebody that works or worked in corrections to watch corrections. That makes no sense at all. That's like letting the kids watch the kids. Right. With that said, we have 2 minutes. Okay. Is there any last thing you would like to say?
Just thank y'all for the opportunity. I would do all I can to help with the movement of ending solitary confinement. I know it's going to be an uphill road, but with the right people, with the right minds, right spirit, and the knowledge to reveal all of the psychological, emotional, and negative effects that solitary confinement has on the individual, then hopefully those that have humanity within them and a moral compass that said what we're doing is wrong. So rehabilitation is really not the objective. It's more retributive. And we need to get away from that to recognize that, individuals may have committed a violent offense, but that don't mean that individual can't change.
Teach, not torture.
And before I leave, there was a lady that used to run the parole board, Helen Fahey, and she had classified all of us as the worst of the worst. And so, but when I heard it and she was on TV, so we didn't release out everybody that needs to be released. All that remain is the worst of the worst. And I'm like, no, you lying.
Yeah.
You lying to the public. Because I knew what I was. And so I had to challenge that. Each and every day I challenged that. I kept that in my mind. That motivated me. That gave me the fuel.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to prove you a liar. And so now that I'm home and doing community work, doing mentorship, helping brothers with their family, with parole issues,
Mhm.
pardons, cases and stuff. So, and people recognizing that even the parole board and certain people up under this administration, which is the first that even we have even had the opportunity to experience, to interact with them and them to be receptive and open to hear what we have to say as credible messages.
Right.
Because of our lived experience within what we call the Better of the Beast or Department of Correction.
Right, behind the wall.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that is today's episode of Solitary No More VA. Brother Willy X. Brown, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
And look forward to doing more things with you.
I look forward to it as well. Thank you so much, Letitia.
Fight for your loved ones, because if you don't, no one else will. Have a good day.
That's right. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Ah!
Yes, sister.
Oh, it's still